this second session of how to track your source module, we will dive first into the mobile world dangers. Because as we said in our previous session, mobile phones didn't appear until the late 1990s, the early 2000s, but their use has since made investigations in journalism more registered and the contacts that you have more vulnerable. Before cell phones, the name, phone number, and other details that made up a source's contact information was entirely offline. It existed only in any journalist's notebook, and of course, if anyone had access to this potentially sensitive information, this was simply a matter of whether they had this information physically in their hands. That would be the problem. Then in the early stages of cell phones, you had early adopters of personal data assistants. You might remember this time, PDAs. That's where they were holding their contacts in the dedicated space within that device. And so essentially, again, the assurance of them not falling in the wrong hands depended solely on journalists literally keeping them away from these hands. Then you had SIM cards that started becoming the go-to instrument where contacts would be saved. And then after that, cell phones started having plenty of memory, on-device memory, and information would have to be saved there. But as cell phones and personal data assistants merged to become smartphones, what we now know as a smartphone, several advances came along to protect their content. This included a full disk encryption. This is a process which protects the drive from being exfiltrated by forensic tools, which is the basic ground on which today is working. I mean, it brought us to today where smartphones can be protected even if they fall into the wrong hands, and that's because both Google's Android and Apple's iOS provide some sort of protection. The problems persist because the thing is that the long list of data that you have stored in your smartphone can be used on any other of your hardware products that you sign into. That means that Apple and Google keep a copy of that data, including your contacts, and in our case, your sources. So essentially, where do we live in? We live in the era of cloud services. These are the services that synchronize your contacts. And that means that Google or Apple's copies can be obtained without the need to extract the data from the phone itself. So if you want your contacts to be away from any external recipient, potentially, you have to make sure you won't synchronize them, and that's something you should avoid. Now, this is what you have to do in the context of lawfully approaching the problem. Because hackers who want to get access to your data is another ball game. It's a very different risk to consider. What is it that you need to do? Basically, first of all, you have to create long passwords, random ones, stored with a password manager. And then the enablement is crucial, the enablement really of a two-factor authenticator for online accounts. Password managers like 1Password offer the ability to store contacts as identities with fields for name, phone number, for address, and more. And also, as we said before, make sure you adjust your Apple iCloud and Google settings to not synchronize contacts with the cloud, and do that before adding sensitive sources. Make sure you do that before. In addition to that, you should know that If you want to remove existing contacts from their servers, you have to refer to the privacy policies. There's some difference between Google and Apple to see how long they keep data around after you delete it, which may be a few days to several months, or in the case of a financial transaction, that could be even years. And that's because um, source protection is very important concern, is a very important concern for journalists in every beat. There are platforms out there like SecureDrop and apps like Signal that allow you to securely and privately speak with whistleblowers and break important stories. And if you want me to be more specific, Signal offers the ability to communicate with minimal metadata, and the other option, which is SecureDrop, which is a whistleblowing platform that allows the first contact to be made between journalists and sources without the disclosure of a telephone number, an email, or even an IP address. So uh, these are key platforms, key applications you should know about uh, to protect your communications with your sources. Because what's more than protecting the confidentiality of the conversations you have with people, the main concern could also be the protection of the metadata or the data that identifies who you've been talking to. So this was us discussing the risks of modern address books and how to mitigate them. And I hope I gave you a clearer picture on how this can be achieved. And this concludes the second session of this module. We will be back again with a third session about sources that are no longer available online. Thank you for watching and stay tuned for more.